The United States government is faking aid to the most damaged areas of North Carolina done by Hurricane Helene. At least that's one of the theories about what's going on in and around Asheville, North Carolina. I'm the Flamed Applesauce, and welcome to Hurricane Helene and a couple theories surrounding it. Hurricane Helene absolutely devastated Florida and North Carolina. Seeing as I live in North Carolina, I feel like I've seen more saying Asheville and its surrounding areas were hit pretty hard, and I'll be covering that more in depth. My heart and prayers go out to everyone affected. By the grace of God, me and my family were, for the most part, spared. Hey guys, note from Future Sauce here. I'm in the middle of editing this. I think I need to make it clear that my stance on this is these are all theories. They're just theories. I don't think I made it clear enough in the video, but they're theories that people have talked about, and my believing in any of them is, just like a fun, wouldn't it be crazy? However, we do know, we have reports that FEMA has some of it, at least the relief. Who got it was political. It's revealed, it has been released that if you had a Trump sign in your lawn, superiors told workers not to go check out your house and see if you needed help.
A wild story out of Florida. The New York Post is reporting this. FEMA, according to the New York Post, is admitting it's true. When the Hurricane Helene hit Florida, according to this report, FEMA employees were told to ignore the homes and properties that had Trump signs. They were not able to get help from FEMA because supervisors allegedly told FEMA workers, if you saw a Trump sign in front of someone's home, do not go to that home and offer them any help from the hurricane. There's evidence, according to the New York Post. There's chats. There's screenshots. Apparently it's true. FEMA is coming out tonight saying that they're deeply saddened, disturbed that this happened. But how often does this happen in government now? Peeling a lot back. Very interesting. Very sad for those people.
They essentially were refusing help from anybody with a Trump sign, which that sucks. I mean, that is absurd and should not be allowed. But what can we do here at the bottom? Anyways, we'll be covering the absolute facts about the hurricane first, and follow it up with different theories made about what's going on. If that interests you, hang around. If not, that's okay too. Thanks for watching, and maybe go check out another video on the channel. September 23rd, 2024, Monday. The NHC, National Hurricane Center, in Miami, Florida, sent a warning to the people stating there was developments in the northwestern Caribbean Sea. They told people it had a high chance of tropical development. Nobody knew what this tropical storm had in store for us. September 24th, Tuesday. The tropical storm had been upgraded into a projected hurricane, not one yet, but very possibly turning into one. It had already caused mudslides and heavy rain in Cuba, and now had its sight sets for Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis declared an emergency order to 61 of the state's 67 counties, while Governor Kemp of Georgia issued an order to all 159 counties. Many would not heed these warnings, eventually causing tragedy unavoidable. Which, that's an interesting thing, because I've talked to a bunch of people from Florida, and they always say the same thing. They're like, yeah, I mean, it just depends on the hurricane rating. Like, if it's such and such, then, it's just another hurricane and we're fine. We've been through it before. Don't even have to worry about it. But they were like, yeah, since it was this category of destruction, we definitely heed the warning at that point. So, a lot of the people that are like, oh, you stupid Southerners, why didn't you leave? They did. And some people just straight up couldn't. But anyways, September 25th, Wednesday. Just as the NHC had predicted, the tropical storm had upgraded to a Category 1 hurricane, gaining the name Helene. In the process, swinging north from the Yucatan Peninsula with the expectation of growing rapidly over the Gulf of Mexico. Warnings were now issued to Tennessee and the southern Appalachians. So this is about the time that we got it in North Carolina, which was odd. I was like, a hurricane here? Whatever. Alright, September 26th. Thursday. As Helene was rampaging through the Gulf, the warm waters only angered the beast, giving it the rage to end up being a Category 4 hurricane before hitting Florida. Reports said that wind speeds of 130 miles an hour were recorded, and just the storm surges were deemed to be catastrophic. Now, I had to look up what a storm surge is, and it's the big waves that come in from the beach before a big storm. And so they're just big, essentially like tidal waves that come crashing in. So those were like 20 miles an hour. We have this guy telling us, what that means. Future Sauce note, those who are listening, this is an animation that I felt properly described the storm surges from Hurricane Florence. So this isn't from Hurricane Helene, but this properly describes and has an animation of what it would be like for the storm surges that happened during Helene.
So let's now have a look at what that might be like. For example, we know Florence is going to bring 1 to 3 feet of inundation across many locations. That certainly is enough to knock you off your feet. It can definitely stall cars out and even carry cars away, and certainly flood many of the lower levels of structures. But we know Florence is also going to bring water rises well above that, perhaps up to 6 feet. Now, 6 feet of water, imagine that. That carries large objects in it, like cars, for example, that can act like battering rams and enhance the damage that would otherwise be. And also, we know that can flood the lower levels of many structures. We also know that Florence is going to carry with it likely storm surge well above that, perhaps 9, 10 feet, maybe more. That will totally cover up one-story buildings and structures, leaving them underwater, and certainly pose a risk to many. There are very few places that are safe when the water rises this high. So please, follow the advice of your local officials and heed the evacuation warnings, and of course stay updated on all the latest forecasts.
The water had already flooded several counties inland, and at 11:10 p.m. that night, Helene touched down in Keaton Beach, starting the terrifying day of destruction and fear. September 27th, Friday, the hurricane made its way up Florida, staring down Georgia and North Carolina with a fiery hate. A massive wall of death and destruction that was unstoppable, and we were at its mercy. Florida was hit the hardest, and I don't have much personal info from there, but I do have the news reports. After ripping through Florida, it downgraded back to a tropical storm, dumping hundreds of gallons of water wherever it went. The Helene tropical storm ripped through North Carolina and Georgia, causing flooding and tragedy for most who were in its path. Here in North Carolina is where I heard the most news. Asheville, North Carolina was hit pretty hard. For example, I work for a company called Ingalls, and everything to do with that company is located in Asheville. Sent ripples of the storm to every store in the area. So headquarters is up there, which has the data center and the... sorry about that, I noticed the lighting. I look better now. But anyways, distribution is there. That's where the warehouse is. And so, like, all of the inventory got, a lot of the bottom layer inventory got soaked. We didn't have very much to come into the store for 3 weeks. So I stocked shelves overnight, and I ended up only having enough work to get me about 8 hours for 2 weeks. I worked 8 hours in 2 weeks. As I was writing this, on October 18th, we just got a store load of a truck to actually stock the shelves. I can't imagine how disruptive it was for those that hit in Florida as a full-on hurricane, if this is what happened here as just a tropical storm. I believe, though, that Chimney Rock got it the worst. Here's Chimney Rock before, and after. As you can see, essentially the whole town washed away. My heart goes out to all those people who are affected by the hurricane in Florida, Georgia, and here in North Carolina. After washing several cities, roads, towns, people, homes, and entire lives away, Helene dissipated, leaving the only evidence that ever existed being the 500-mile path of destruction in the southern part of the U.S. With the pathing and damage relayed to you, let's get into something a little more lighthearted. Theories. There are many theories on the hurricane itself, the aid, the government intervention, and more. Here is 2 that I particularly think are interesting. I've come across these by conversing with people out here in the state and on social media. So I'm going to start off this section by saying to all the people who hooped and hollered about anyone dying to the flooding of the hurricanes, go fuck yourself. They were people. They had families. And most likely they contributed more to society than you ever will. It doesn't matter political stance, religious beliefs, any beliefs they held, they were washed away. And if you celebrate it or cheer it all for any reason, especially political, you are a demon in disguise, and I do not want you here. Please leave. Angry sauce out of the way, let's get into the odd side of the internet. First one up to bat is cloud seeding. Cloud seeding was an idea that was cooked up by Louis Gothman in 1891. He believed that shooting liquid carbon dioxide into clouds would cause rain. Then, in 1946, Vincent Schaefer of GE, yes, the GE that erases stains with washer and bad guys with machine guns, look up who makes the gun on the A-10, confirmed Louis Gothman's hypothesis while researching aircraft icing. He continued testing with supercooled clouds in a deep freeze unit and received minimal results. But nonetheless, now to be accurate on events, here is the testing process. On July 14th, 1946, he wanted to try a few experiments at GE's Schenectady Research Lab. He was dismayed to find that the deep freezer was not cold enough to produce a cloud using breath air. He decided to move the process along by adding a chunk of dry ice just to lower the temperature of his experimental chamber. To his astonishment, as soon as he breathed into the deep freezer, he noted a bluish haze, followed by an eye-popping display of millions of microscopic ice crystals, reflecting the strong light rays from the lamp illuminating a cross-section of the chamber. He instantly realized that he had discovered a way to change supercooled water into ice crystals. The experiment was easily replicated, and he explored the temperature gradient to establish the negative 40 degrees Celsius. Okay, I thought that was a typo. Funnily enough, negative 40 degrees Celsius is also negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But anyways, he explored the temperature gradient to establish the negative 40 degrees Celsius, negative 40 degree Fahrenheit limit for water. Schaefer's method altered a cloud's heat budget. And since I didn't know what a heat budget was, I'm going to assume you don't either, and let you know. A cloud's heat budget is the relationship of solar radiation clouds reflect back into the atmosphere and the amount they hold inside. For example, a high, wispy cloud, not able to cause precipitation, would have a net warming effect, and they don't absorb the heat. Contrasted by a cumulus cloud, big, dark, scary ones, absorb the heat and they absorb and reflect the heat back. So since we found a way to artificially cool the clouds, we could force clouds, and this is important, they have to have existed previously, to artificially get bigger, heavier, and in our case, rainier. Now at the time, Schaefer's colleague Bernard Vonnegut was credited with another way to seed supercooled water. He looked into a basic chemistry book and tinkered with silver and iodide to create, you guessed it, silver iodide. What does it do? I have no clue. But now I do! The crystal structure in the silver iodide is very similar to an ice lattice, which is the way an ice crystal forms. And combining the two of their researches, the first cloud seeding experiment was enacted during 1946 in New York. The first attempt to modify natural clouds in the field through cloud seeding began during a flight that began in upstate New York on 13th November 1946. Schaefer was able to cause snow to fall near Mount Greylock in western Massachusetts. Side note, that Greylock analog horror video series on YouTube? Fucking banger. After he dumped 6 pounds of dry ice into the target cloud from a plane after a 60-mile easterly chase from the Schenectady County Airport. So that's the science and creation of cloud seeding. Here's where it gets interesting. In 1967 to 72, the U.S. government used this exact science to drown Vietnamese in the Operation Popeye. This was enacted over the Ho Chi Minh Trail to extend the monsoon season. Something a friend of mine told me to look into is something called Project HARP, High Altitude Research Project. In doing so, I learned it was a rocket that was tested in 1960 to, you guessed it again, 67. The early side of the cloud seeding in Vietnam. The thing that these missiles could do was carry a liquid payload or chemical to be put in the atmosphere, and could very easily be used to put the silver iodide in the air to keep the storm going. Flash forward to now, on the morning of November 26th, Flight NOAA 42 departed Houston, Texas, flew above the hurricane, and proceeded to spin around the eye, specifically according to the model. During this time, the occupants on board, most likely scientists, could have dispersed our silver iodide solution into the hurricane, causing it to do that same thing we did to the Vietnamese all those years ago. Now, some people believe that this was a political stunt. It's clearly an election year, and holy shit, I am tired of these fucking texts. Both sides want my vote, and I don't feel good about either. But the popular belief associated with this one is the plane was sent by the government to wipe out these big southern red states to help with the election. Us stupid southerners would be too busy dying, rebuilding, and I guess racisming to be able to vote this year. And this, however, is not the case. Flight NOAA 42 is a career hurricane-chasing plane. It's part of a government program. I know, it's still the government, but hold your horses. To study and record hurricanes. NOAA 42's first flight was on August 27, 1976. Took off from Acapulco, Mexico, and flew a mission into Hurricane Bonnie. This was the first flight into a hurricane for this plane that had been acquired by the U.S. Department of Commerce the previous year to replace the old DC-6 research planes used since 1960 to gather in situ weather data. All in all, a lot of different moving parts on this one that come together to create a pretty solid theory. I just don't really believe this one. So the crux of this one is it's reported that when the hurricane went over Florida, it somehow got faster over land. And about that time, the airplane was going around and it was flying above recording the data. There's a theory that there could have been some bad actor on it who was posing as one of the scientists and distributed the chemicals while he was up there, but that's really unlikely. I mean, it's like a controlled experiment type thing, like it's not hurting people. This would be a cool, fun idea to play with, but I just don't feel like this one missed the ball. Theory 2 is that the government has taken advantage of a situation to secure land for a mine outside of Asheville. The state of North Carolina has two active mining companies, Piedmont Lithium and Albemarle Corp. Both companies had plans to buy property in North Carolina. Piedmont Lithium, they stated that it was about 25 miles outside of Charlotte. Now, Charlotte is 2 hours and 45 minutes away from Asheville, so close enough for me. Here's where it gets interesting. The company BlackRock, the one that is literally the world's largest asset manager, bought shares in the two lithium companies as well as Duke Energy. For those that don't know, Duke Energy is the main provider for power in North Carolina. They provide power for 8.4 million residents in the state out of the 10.8. I also use Duke Energy, so there's a possibility after this video goes up that my power gets funky for no reason. I'll know why, and it's entirely my fault. Anyways, we have a shady money company buying stocks in energy companies, which isn't suspicious, but there are dams outside of Asheville that residents have been concerned about for years, stating that they are decrepit, worn out, and flat out dangerous. And as the flooding was happening, it just so happened that the dams either broke down or were opened manually. Now, it's unconfirmed which way. Some people who survived say that they broke, some people say that they were opened. It's an equal mix of both, and you can't really tell. This wiped out residents' homes that were in and around Asheville. And here's where we find another thread that trails off into the darkness. A portion of that location is where one of the U.S.'s largest deposits of lithium resides, underneath residential areas that the residents were already asked if they could be bought out of. Obviously, the residents said no, and the company, which possibly Piedmont, have to say possibly for legal reasons, has been trying for a while to acquire that land. So now that the houses aren't there, they can swoop in and grab up the land. It hasn't happened yet, but for a while, people were being told that they could not return to their homes. So what's the big deal with lithium? Well, lithium is used in batteries. You know, the small button batteries, the big 9 volts, all the way up to car batteries. That's pretty convincing right there to be like, well, big battery company wants this stuff? Seems like a good enough reason. They're making money. Seems like a good enough reason for the government to step in and be like, fuck these people. However, something I didn't know, and my wife informed me of, is that lithium is used in medicine. For those who don't know, pharmaceuticals is a lucrative business. Just last year, in 2023, it generated $1.48 trillion of revenue. That is 1,140 times, or 1,140,000 times. That number in cash would crush you to death. Lithium is used in mood stabilizers for bipolar disease, which if you didn't know is fairly common nowadays. I didn't much believe in this theory until my wife informed me of the medicine side of it, and then I felt like it made sense. Money is evil. It consumes the soul and leads to some of the most evil shit possible. There's a chance this is one of those situations. There's a reason that the dams were opened, if they were, was to release pressure on it from the amount of rain. Dams can only hold so much pressure from water, before they completely crumble, and it would be worse if the dam didn't open to release some of the pressure, so that way it could hold back the water and not just crumble, and then we have a whole situation. It would be better to open it a little bit, even if it's already like flooded area. That would be a reasonable thing to do. So that's that part thrown out. I mean, with the addition of the hurricane, all the information that I come across, I can't find just little bits of information anymore. Either I don't know how to use Google properly. I know the video has been depressing and hopefully informative, but things are not all bad. Us Southerners are hard to beat down. We're resilient and helpful. Almost immediately afterwards, we sent aid of every kind imaginable to residents in areas affected. We sent big diggers, and we sent big excavators and whatnot, and they went in and they started rebuilding almost immediately. We started clearing out places. There were tons of aid happening. I personally volunteered my time to help send aid. I went to the college nearby, and we were sorting out donations into proper boxes so that way they could be distributed properly to the people who need it. Anyways, the government came in with FEMA and did stuff, I think. Yeah, I remember it was stuff like playing with themselves in the corner while contractors and the good old boys started rebuilding things and fixing shit, you know? They did significantly more than the professional fuck-ups from the government could ever wet dream about. For example, the government stated that US 74 out of Chimney Rock to connect it back to civilization would take up to a year to finish. A Virginia mining crew bust out their fat hogs and slapped a road out in 3 days. It's not an official road, it's not paved, but it's a road that can be used. And people are bitching about it too, it's crazy. There are videos of government helicopters doing low flyover after being told they would damage supplies and hurt people. That was a crazy video that went around. Luke Combs recently raised $24 million to be sent to residents affected, as well as residents affected by the hurricane. Is that actually going to reach them? I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling it will, but, you know, it's government's involved and they like money. Oh, I forgot. FEMA also is giving out $750 per household. Isn't that great? We can rebuild. Well, they can rebuild with that, right? Did I also forget to mention that it's a loan? It is stated on FEMA's website, you will pay it back in your taxes at the beginning of the year.
So it is a loan. The FEMA 750 that they're giving all the people in Western North Carolina, it's a loan. FEMA to advance you some money to help pay your costs while your insurance is delayed. You'll need to pay the money back to FEMA after you receive your insurance settlement.
Woo! Good thing they got their loan to replace the house that got washed away. I don't know if you guys know this, but a house doesn't cost $750 fucking dollars. You can't even refurbish a house. All in all, this is a shitty situation. There are people who were stolen from us by a nightmare brought to reality. The intense political sphere in which we live has worsened the whole situation, but all the bad that has come our way does not even come close to the community positivity that immediately jumped into action. We have been hard at work rebuilding and repairing. My thoughts and prayers go out to those rebuilding, mourning, and lost to Helene. It doesn't matter what you believe is going on behind the scenes. The long and short of it is, help others. Everyone affected by this, we're normal people. Us Southerners would help anyone else in the country just the same. And as far as the theories go, the only confirmation we can get on anything is that whether it is intentionally disruptive or blatant negligence, the government is absolutely fucking useless. In almost every facet, we have done better without them in this situation. Their idiocy has been prominently on full display this whole time. The president and vice president coming into Asheville to take a couple pictures and fuck off back to DC, never to think about us ever again. Shutting down airspace so that way aid can't be brought in from the sky. They took that down for like a full day. I think it was 24 to 48 hours. Next up, we have FEMA fucking up literally everything they do. The DOT taking forever to build any fucking road ever. And the people who lost homes that are not able to be bought, repaired, or even refurbished with a fucking loan of $750. They might as well have said, we know you lost your house, spouse, livelihood, family, but here, let me hold your hand, sing Kumbaya, and spit in your fucking mouth. The government has been so fucking useless in this whole situation. And this video was not meant to entertain. This video was meant for reflection and flat out inform as true as I can be. With that being said, thank you for watching. Please pray for those affected, not just here in North Carolina, but those in Florida as well. Be good to each other and have a wonderful day. Peace and chicken grease.